Hello everyone, my name is Lucio Barajas and I'm going to be going over an article that I did with the presentation, PowerPoint presentation for week 4. So I'm going to share my screen and go over a PowerPoint with you about an article. So the article I chose to share with you guys is called Second Generation Challenges for Making Content Assessments Accessible for ELLs. Okay, and it's written by Rebecca J. Kopriva in August 2014 and presented by me, Lucio Barajas. So second generation challenges for making content assessments accessible for students. Okay, the article breaks down the assessments for ELLs in 3 series of investigations. So the main idea of this is to show that the assessments for ELL learners is quite difficult, and there's a lot of work to be done in order for ELLs to get the proper accommodations for them to be taking assessments and to be showing their full potential that they have and not let the language, the English language barrier, hold them back. So these are different ways of the problem, first of all, the problem that ELLs have facing assessments. And then second and third is how can we help ELLs with assessments by giving proper accommodations. So I put down number 1, the first investigation examines the effects of different testing conditions. Okay, so what the problem is. The second series is called Stella, and it investigates online systems that produces profiles of ELL populated by characteristics identified as critical to making sound test accommodation decisions. So it sounds long and kind of very complex, but in reality, what Stella is just a term that means it's computer-based, and they're trying to assist with as much accommodations for students of ELL with assessments. So just different ways that kind of like algorithms on the computers that can come out with solutions to help ELLs, population of ELLs for assessment accommodations. And then the third one is a little bit similar to the Stella second series. The third one is On Par, uses dynamic multi-semiotic representation and novel responses in online environments. And then I'll break down into what they are right now. Okay, so here's a quick picture of like a series 1, series 2, and series 3. Series 1, as you can see right here, constructed response with text evidence. So typically, most tests are most tests are, what do you call it? Constructed response systems, meaning they have a lot of text features. It's very good for somebody who knows the language very well, but for an ELL, English language learner, you can tell how difficult it could be when having to answer so many questions on just nothing but text features. Okay, so supporting details, evidence-based terms, explanations, text evidence, answers. So this assessment can become very burdensome to an ELL because, first of all, they know very little English, and to be giving them this much text and questions, it can be very overwhelming. So this next picture, where it says energetic self-perception, it's a circle. This one's kind of like the Stella style. And here, let me tell you what Stella stands for. Stella stands for School Taxonomy for English Language Learners Accommodation. Okay, so taxonomy, so this is kind of where the investigators for assessments for ELL kind of try and teach teachers how to accommodate students with ELL and different ways to go about it. So it's more of a conceptual versus procedural type style. So procedure would be just like kind of, oh, this is what you have to do, and then this is what you have to do. And conceptual will teach them kind of the overall why it's done that way versus this is how it's done. It's kind of more of the why than the how. And It opens up their thoughts, gets them to use their cultural background. It gets them to kind of use more things than just the written language, kind of anything else that ELLs have. It becomes a little difficult because teachers have to know how to teach and know how to accommodate in order for it to work well. So it's a little, delicate, but it works wonders if the teachers are able to teach very well to a specific level where no matter how low or high the ELL individual is, they're able to learn the concept of what the teacher's trying to teach them. So these are just different ways on how to do that. And then the third part, which is the on par, which is the picture on the bottom, is kind of more computerized. Okay, so I'll read a little bit here. It says, ways in connecting written item text in language with oral and in other, with the language in one and oral in another. So they can have something written and then the computer can translate it to their language or in an easier level. Okay, use targeted text to speech. So for those ELLs who don't have language sophistication, okay, so this is kind of more like a computer based where they're giving them different ways to respond, not just by multiple choice or one answer, kind of different ways to get their thought process going and be able to see their philosophy, how their brain works versus than just answering a question. So those are the three series. So types of investigation, the Stella and the OnPar. These are some pictures so you can kind of visualize it a little more. So one is pretty much the text, the problems with ELLs, and the assessments that we have now. The next one, energetic self-perception, is a different ways to find accommodations for them and for how teachers can give accommodations to those ELL students. And then the third one is more computer-based, where they're also coming up with more algorithms to help those ELL learners be successful. Okay, so I'm going to go over Series 1 investigation that the article approached. It's mentioned how assessments typically are multiple choice since the 1920s. Not until the 1990s, authentic assessments argued that comparability of common academic test inferences could be made on conceptual rather than procedural grounds. So the 1990s is when started noticing that most of these are procedures, saying that these are the steps on how to do it, but they don't tell you why it's done that way. Large-scale accommodations for ELLs were distilled, meaning large scales, the country, statewide country, and how they were distilled, how ELLs were still kind of, they were struggling and there wasn't too much accommodations still at that time. Researchers argue that ELL accommodations need be informed by student background factors. So it's very important to know the ELL students' background information and just to kind of know what the strengths and weaknesses are, mostly just their strengths, so that can be a part of the accommodation. Okay, schools gave same rigor test to ELLs as that of native English speakers. So everybody was given the same test no matter what language level they were at. And that was a big downfall to ELLs because they struggled so much that they brought down the test scores, and it wasn't fair because they needed those accommodations. And the accommodations doesn't mean answers, it just means different ways for them to understand what is being asked of them to do. Okay, and here's some continuing. Assessment feels slow to adopt advice to systematically match students with certain needs for proper accommodations or adaptations. So the fields of assessments kind of failed to pick up new evidence of different types of accommodations to help ELLs. The linguistics and social culture for minorities are dynamic and fluctuate in how most students perceive that content and cognitive demands. So you always have to keep up to date with what's going on around the culture, different type of learning styles, okay? Vulnerability of students who have recently exited EL services looking at high content demands. So those who kind of tested out of the ELL, English language learners. They were considered proficient while still looking at a rigor, high demand content within their classroom, even though they had barely, not mastered, but just understood the English language. We're now looking into a lot of cognitive demands for higher content demand. So they were actually struggling just as well. How to better measure knowledge and skills in ELL students. So that's another way, another thing that investigators are working on. Series 2 and 3 of investigation. So these are the second part with the Stella and the OnPar. So the author sets the stage for future research where questions can be specified and investigated. Teachers can provide better situations to diverse learners so they can show what they know. So this is kind of going back to the Stella, how investigators and researchers can teach teachers through, what's it called, through getting together and teaching them what they have found to work best for ELLs. Move from constructive response, multiple choice, to other mixed forms, including multimedia, drawings, graphics. This goes on to the OnPar, where they're using different types of abstracts or something else besides just text. Also, constructive response is not sensitive to code, switching, or immature language that ELLs use. So when they say that, that means that assessments are difficult for ELLs to try and answer because they're just one answer only. And ELLs tend to have immature language, which means they might not use all the correct grammar, but they're able to express their thoughts. But the tests don't accept that. They just accept one answer, and that's it. So also continuing, less linguistic dense items might be available in the future. So it just has to be at the same cognitive demand, consistent with that of general version. So we're thinking of what can we do to accommodate the ELLs, what's to come, okay? So less linguistic dense, so that means not too much text-based assessments, okay? Something more hands-on or drawings, pictures. Developers need more complex algorithms than those in use today. So more complex algorithms will help with just the typical assessments. Some developers are working on computer screens that spend time building multi-semiotic tasks, such as movement via animation, also more interaction between computer screens and students with text in one language with oral in another. So overall, the article is trying to find better accommodations. Researchers are working on that and trying to get the information out to the teachers to better help English language learners. So it's a little bit of a catch-up game. But yeah, that's my overall take in my article. Okay. Thank you for listening. Bye.